Hey, what's up, everyone? This is me, Dre. I wanted to make this video because, you know, in light of shit that happened with the fraternity at the Oklahoma University and also with the young man that was killed by the cop in Minnesota. I mean, not Minnesota, but Milwaukee. But being a YouTuber, especially a black YouTuber who will discuss these type of topics, it's always common that we'll come across trolls. I visit a lot of YouTube channels of other black YouTubers, but just YouTubers in general, but black YouTubers that discuss or take on the topic of racial issues, such as Jay Miller Speaks Out. Love his channel. Thank you, Jay. You have guys like Tommy Sotomayor. He draws criticism from both whites and blacks and everyone else for his strong stance and how he feels. You have a lot of guys out there, but what's true is for black YouTubers that take on these kind of topics, you always get trolls that come on the page. So for me, when I'm discussing things like racism and sharing my opinion, and this isn't against white people, so first and foremost, if you get offended by this, then maybe you're part of the fucking problem. But when I made my video both about Oklahoma University, the fraternity, as well as the young man that was killed in Milwaukee, there's one gentleman in particular. I'm going to call this motherfucker out as Bob Jenkins, or Bob Jenkins, excuse me. And this is common, not just from him, but from the trolls that usually come onto my page, because when it comes to crime in the United States, crime happens in every community from every ethnicity. So is there a problem with black crime being committed? Yes, there is. But when you look at certain things, such as when a white cop kills anybody, and then when you look at what's happening in the news, most of the time, especially within the last 12 months, you're seeing a black person on the receiving end of a bullet from a white cop. Do black cops shoot and kill people? Yes. There was a black guy in Los Angeles, a homeless guy, that was shot and killed. First shot fired by a black cop, and then some of the other cops around him. So yes, that does happen. But how fucking often are you going to see where black cops are in the spotlight for shooting an Asian or a white? And it's easy to say, well, white people don't do this or that. Look, my conversation with Bob Jenkins is this. He had the nerve to come on to my video. I'm just going to read a little snippet of what this motherfucker said, just so you guys get an understanding of how racists will try to blanket their statement and choose to slide the racism into the conversation. So with this, and he's one of the first commenters, but he just says, blacks should think about why other races don't like or hate blacks. First and foremost, we don't give a fuck who likes us or not. Okay, we have to deal with ourselves. We have to carry ourselves with a high head. So we're not worried about what other communities think, because if you look at the history of this country, the moment that you motherfuckers brought us over here, you regretted it once we started getting our liberties. That's the simple fucking truth. When we were emancipated, some of you motherfuckers, especially racist motherfuckers like you, did not like that. So you tried to use the Bible to say that blacks were supposed to be subservient, supposed to be slaves, were supposed to serve the white masters. Motherfuckers like you tried to say that we couldn't have our liberties with your Jim Crow laws and things like that. You tried to oppress us. We had to go and do our civil rights marches and things like that. And this is me on my soapbox trying to lead another civil rights march, because we have our liberties now. But we are still in a day and age to where we are deemed by people who are supposed to protect and serve when they're fucking us up. Okay, there are some incidences where individuals cause their own demise. There's absolutely no doubt about that. But you always want to bring into the conversation, especially what happened to Michael Brown. And I've got my own opinion about that, so we're not going to drudge on that. But when you're looking at this right here, where you have it on video as proof, with a whole bunch of white guys on a fucking fraternity bus talking about they don't want niggers in their fraternity, and they would rather see them hang from trees. How can you justify that by saying blacks should think about how other races don't care for them? We have already gone through generations of motherfuckers hanging black from trees. And most recently, there was a black man in the southern states that was found hanging from a tree. And while that's being investigated, I wouldn't be surprised if some racist motherfucker like you, Bob, did some shit like that. How many times have you seen where black people have lynched a white person? If you see that in the news, you send me a motherfucking link. But when you come onto my channel and try to justify and come off with some bullshit like that, and then with white people like you who have the common nerves, instead of saying nigger, you call us thugs. But then when I give you an example of white kids plotting to kill someone or white people committing crimes themselves, oh, they're disturbed, they're mentally deranged, they need help. But you don't call them thugs. And that's the common thing that happens. You exhibit your racism when you give special exception to one side but not the other. So all of a sudden, if a black guy is wearing a long t-shirt, saggy jeans, you don't know what walk of life he comes from, all of a sudden he's a fucking thug. You don't know if he's a Fortune 500 member. All of a sudden you judge him based on his appearance. That's why I gave you the example. If Chris Rock approached you wearing a long t-shirt and saggy jeans, all of a sudden you're going to want to walk to the other side of the fucking street because you think he's a thug. Thug is the new nigger. That's the word. When Richard Sherman had his little rant at the end of that football game against the 49ers, people started calling him thug. You're talking about a guy that had a 3.9 grade point average in Stanford University. Stanford University. It's no slouch to get that kind of grade point average, but to be that high on the grade list at a university like that, he's far from a thug. If you're judging him based on the fact that he's brash, he's arrogant, he wears braids, all of a sudden he's a nigger or a thug, that makes you a racist. So you're coming on my page talking about how black people do this, and then you try to justify Michael Brown being killed simply because you feel like because of what the court says. No one was there except for Dorian Johnson, Michael Brown, who's deceased, Darren Wilson, and people who did not see it. But I've covered this motherfucking story from the very beginning. And Darren Wilson's story changed from the day that he shot Michael Brown, where he said he rolled upon them walking in the middle of the fucking street. He told them to get the fuck out the street, or whichever man that he told them to get out of the street. They did not comply. He decided to get out of his car. So you're trying to say that simply because Michael Brown being, what, 6'4", 300 pounds, he figured get the ass back in the car, drive on about your business. You really think that this young man attacked a cop? A scuffle ensued, yes. But a cop who wants to assert his authority, he's going to try to impose his will. And Darren Wilson was not a small man. You're talking about someone that's 6'3", about 215, 220 pounds. Not that he can't hold his own, but when he decides to get out of the car because he said he was not aware of any robbery, that was his story on the day that he killed Michael Brown. He said that he rolled upon them, was not aware that they were the two that left the store after the incident happened. All he knows is he saw them in the middle of the street where they could cause danger for themselves, cause an accident with other passersby and vehicles. So he commanded them to get out of the street, and when they did not, he decided to take action. He said that he was not aware of any call-in for any robbery. That was his story on the day the shooting took place. And then all of a sudden on the deposition, when he was on trial, he tried to say that he rolled upon them, he heard about the incident that happened, and he was waiting for backup. But consider the fact that a single cop who could potentially see two people as a potential threat, he decides to put himself in harm's way. Badge and gun or not, putting himself in harm's way instead of waiting for backup to appear. You tell me. Never mind, because it doesn't even matter, because you want to believe what you want, and a lot of you racist motherfuckers will too. But when you come on my page and talk that bullshit, this is what I try to explain to you. And ignorance is ignorance. And that's what you're bringing at me. So don't come on my page talking a whole bunch of bullshit. Don't come on my page trying to justify your racism, because you will get called out. This is the kind of shit that we as black YouTubers have to deal with. And this is going to rub a lot of motherfuckers the wrong way. But I don't care. I'm friends with a lot of white people. And I don't need to say my best friend's white, nothing like that. Usually racists, when they get called out, the first thing they're going to say is they got a friend that's black, or they got a family member that's black. People who know me know that I have no issue with anyone. I was married to a white woman. I've said that several times on many of my videos. I'm married to a Mexican right now. All right? I've got biracial children. I went to school where it was 60% white, and a lot of my friends are white. I don't need to explain this to anybody because I get along with everyone because we all bleed red blood. I don't judge anyone unless they have a reason to be judged. So I judge you, Bob Jacobs, and every jackass just like you. Anyway, I'm done with this shit because I know it's just the internet. Motherfuckers like you remain nameless and faceless. And also with your profile picture, I see that you changed that. You also proved how racist you are when you made jest of the fact that this young man was killed, Michael Brown. So you had a picture of Hulk Hogan coming down from the ropes, slamming on top of him. I see you changed your profile picture now when I called you out for that shit. That doesn't change the fact that you're a racist asshole. And for any motherfucker that thinks that there's any justification or you feel like all black people are thugs, make friends with a black person. If you feel like the word nigger doesn't mean anything, go around a bunch of black people and say it. See what happens. The whole point of this country, it's built on oppression. And we broke through those chains. But today, some of us are still oppressed. That's why when you look at law enforcement, when you see the papers from the Justice Department about how the Ferguson Police Department did a lot of underhanded bullshit, a lot of you will still say racism does not exist. And you're part of the fucking problem. Anyway, if you like this video, hope that you like, subscribe, and share. Peace.